Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Every single day at my office, I get at least one phone call or one email. But every single day, I get one phone call or one email regarding the exact same topic. I've talked about this topic in a variety of contexts. I've done videos similar to this a long time ago. But I feel it's my duty as an attorney who specializes in lemon law to talk about this once in a while to make sure that people remember it and keep it in the front of their minds. And it has to do with my used car warning. My used car warning. If you are going to buy a used car or you're shopping for a used car, you know someone who's shopping for a used car, if there's going to be a used car in your life in the future, you need to know two things I'm going to tell you right now. Okay? And it's extremely important because the phone call I get always starts with, I'm looking for a lemon law attorney. And I say, oh, that's me. You've come to the right place. You called the right number. You got the right guy. I answered the phone, didn't I? Let's talk. I say, what type of car do you have? They tell me. I go, is it new or used? And 99 times out of 100, they go, it's used. So I have to say, well, unfortunately in Michigan and in most states, the lemon law doesn't generally cover used cars. It covers new cars. And there are rare examples where used cars can be covered, but it's usually within a year or two of purchase. And it's got to be a really, really funky timing with respect to the events that would allow it to qualify. But generally speaking, if you bought a 5-year-old used car, the lemon law is not going to help you, okay? So I go, is it new or used? You go, used. I say, okay, you bought a used car. Lemon law is not going to help you. They say, well, let me tell you the story. And I'm now going to skip ahead of the story because the stories are all the same and tell you what the thought process is and how the flow chart works, okay? So the first question is, did you buy it new or used? Not new? Used. Okay. So now we're on that part of the course. You bought a used car. Did you buy it from an individual seller or a merchant? And I always say, did you buy it from a dealer or a person? And I understand that there's a guy working at the dealership, but the seller, if you look at the document that says that you bought a vehicle from somebody, if you bought it from a dealer, it'll say the seller is a dealership, not a person. So the seller technically is not a person. But just getting this out of the way. So did you buy the car from an individual or from a dealership? And it's important because, again, the thought process will branch at that point, the flow chart, the decision tree. And so you bought a used car from an individual. This is the easiest one to take care of because if you bought a used car from an individual, most states, including Michigan, which is where I practice law, say that if you buy a product from an individual who is not a merchant with respect to goods of the kind, and that would be a dealer with respect to a car. If you bought it from just some guy, okay, he's not a merchant. The car does not come with an implied warranty of merchantability, and it cannot come with an implied warranty of merchantability because he's not a merchant. You might say, Steve, what's the implied warranty of merchantability? It's the idea that if you buy a product, it'll do what it's supposed to do. So if you buy something and it doesn't work, you can often go back after the merchant who sold it to you and say, hey, this thing doesn't work. Implied warranty of merchantability. With a car, that would mean the car will get you safe and reliable transportation from point A to point B. So if you buy a used car from an individual, it does not have that guarantee. Doesn't it? It can't. Okay? So what do you get when you buy a used car from an individual? Well, you get the car, possession of the car. You'll get a title saying you own the car, and you're getting it as is. Now, you might say, but Steve, the guy never said as is. Doesn't matter. As is, by operation of law, becomes the default position. Okay? You're buying the vehicle as is. It's presumed to be as is. Now, I've had people say, but Steve, the guy told me the car ran good. Car ran good. Guy told me the car had no problems. Guy told me the car was a wonderful car. Guy told me that he drove the car every single day for the last 2 years, never had a problem. I was driving it home and the engine exploded. Okay, those statements are considered sales puffery, and not legally enforceable. So if I say it's a good car and it turns out to not be a good car, you can't sue somebody over that and win, not unless you get some insane results. I've actually sat in court and watched small claims court proceedings where somebody stood up and said, Your Honor, guy sold me a car, said it was a good car. Judge goes, he's an individual? Yeah. No case. Boom, get out of here. And I've had people tell me, they say, Steve, I can still sue the guy, right? You'll lose, and you theoretically could get sanctioned for filing a frivolous lawsuit. because there's no basis for suing somebody simply because they sold you a defective car. Now you might say, but Steve, what's the answer here? The answer here is don't get ripped off. And the way you don't get ripped off is you get the vehicle inspected before you buy it. And now I know people who are car shopping and are looking at a car and they go, well, I didn't think to get the vehicle inspected because I didn't want to offend the person. It's not going to offend them. They won't let you get inspected. Don't buy the car. But say, hey, you know something? I got a mechanic. I'm going to have him come over and look at the car. Bring a mechanic with you. Or if there's a mechanic nearby, can we take the car over and we'll all go over there and walk around and look underneath the car? The guy says, no, don't buy the car. They say, yeah, then have a mechanic check out the car. Because besides the fact you're getting the car as is with all faults, when you buy anything, whether it's a car or otherwise, if you're given the opportunity to inspect the product and you choose not to, you are waiving your right to complain about the things you would have found had you inspected it. And I've spoken to people before who said, Steve, I walked out there, the car looked great, drove it home, walked around the car the next morning and saw something on the other side of the car I didn't see. And I'm like, you didn't walk around the car? No, I walked up to the car. I've seen these cars before. And I thought to myself, there's no way they're going to show me a car that's got a big old dent on one side. Are they? Apparently they did. I say, well, why did you walk around the car? It was raining. It was dark. I was tired. The guy was rushing me. Car's parked up against a wall. Who knows? But you didn't inspect the car. A judge is likely going to say, why didn't you inspect the car? And you're going to give him some lame excuse that I just numbered off right there. And he's going to say, well, guess what? You could have inspected the car. You chose not to. That's on you. It's your job to inspect the car. The law is not here to protect you from your own mistakes. The law is there to simply allow you to enforce your legal rights if you have any. And when you buy a car from an individual, yeah, it's a sales contract, but the agreement is you get this car, you pay them money. That's the car for money. That's the exchange. And that contract doesn't say, oh, by the way, the car will perform to a certain standard. That would be called a warranty. And I've never heard of anybody giving a warranty with a car saying, oh, by the way, I promise you this car will go 3,000 miles or 3 months with no breakdowns. And if it does, I'll fix it. I've never heard that from an individual. Never. So if you buy the vehicle from an individual, it's presumed to be sold as is. That means no implied warranty merchantability. You get what you get. Everything is on you. And that literally means that if you hand them the money, they hand you the title and the keys, you get in the car and you go to fire it up and it explodes, it's now your pile of rubble. And I know people who say, but Steve, in my state, we get this. No. There is no rule that you get 100 yards. There's no rule to get it off their property. There are some states where they, for a fee, say that you can buy some kind of protection against 1 or 2 day return period from a dealership, but not from an individual. So I've never heard of that before. So the point is that when you're buying a car from an individual, you gotta be very, very careful. I know people nowadays who buy cars sight unseen off the internet. They see a car online, they go, hey, it's a great car. They buy the car. Didn't even test drive it. Did you take a virtual test drive? It's insanity. So if you're going to buy a car, I would urge you to inspect it, but also take it for a test drive, obviously. And ideally take it for a test drive and get it up to highway speeds, drive it slow, turn the radio off, check the air conditioning, make sure all the systems work, listen for sounds, pop the hood while the engine's running, look for leaks. If you can't get a mechanic to inspect it, find somebody you know who knows a little bit about cars and bring them along. I've spoken to far too many people as an attorney that I can tell you that there are people out there who bought cars who had no mechanical training, but still would have spotted what was wrong with their car if they'd simply popped the hood and looked, or if they'd simply looked in the trunk, or they simply looked underneath the car. And they go, but I'm not a mechanic. Why would I do it? Well, you're telling me now that when you popped the hood, you saw that the radiator hose was wrapped with duct tape. Did you need to be a mechanic to figure that out? They go, well, I'm not a mechanic. I didn't pop the hood. Okay, you don't need to be a mechanic to pop the hood. But I would urge you to have it inspected or inspect it yourself. Certainly test drive it. Walk around it. Make sure you can see everything. If necessary, bring a flashlight. The point is, if you're buying a used car from an individual, you're buying it as is with all faults. That thing is yours. And you say, Steve, that's a very, very harsh reality. Yes, it is. Price the car accordingly. Otherwise, live dangerously. So that's with respect to an individual selling a used car. Now, when we get to dealerships, things get worse because the law is actually going to be on the side of the dealerships in most states on what I'm about to tell you. And that is that in Michigan and in most states that I'm encountering where it's legal to do so, 99.99999, the repeating 9, of all used cars sold by dealerships are sold as is. As is. Which means that while they could sell it to you with a warrant of merchantability, they choose not to. And they're allowed by law to do that. The Uniform Commercial Code specifically says that a seller who is a merchant with respect to goods of the kind can disclaim the implied warranty of merchantability so long as they do it conspicuously. So what most dealers in Michigan do is they take the buyer's guide where it says the vehicle comes with a warranty or no warranty. As is, they check the as is box. That's number one. Number two, on the purchase agreement, they'll often put this vehicle being sold as is, no implied warranty of merchantability, blah, 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 and they put it there too. Three, they almost always put it on the RD 108 under the remarks section, which is the application for Michigan title. As is, no warranty of merchantability, blah, 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 blah. It's there. So people call me and say, Steve, I bought a car, blew up 3 minutes after I bought it. Lemon law, no. Individual or dealer? Dealer. Should you buy it as is? I don't know. Okay, first of all, you should know the answer to that question because the answer is almost always going to be yes, you did. If you bought something as is and didn't know it, there's the problem. That's why I'm making the video. The goal is to educate people to understand what that box means on that window sticker, the buyer's guide that's glued to the window of the car when you took it for a test drive. That's there for a reason to let you know you're buying a car as is. And the number of people I speak to say, I didn't know what that meant. Okay, stop and ask somebody. Go on the internet, type in what does as is mean. You might find this video. Call me, I'll explain it to you. Watch the video. 99% of all used cars sold in Michigan by dealers are sold as is. No implied warranty of merchantability. What that literally means is you buy the car, pay the money, they give you the keys, they give you the paperwork, you turn the key, engine explodes, pile of rubble. It's yours. Get it off their lot. People say, Steve, you didn't get it off the lot. It's not your... Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The transaction took place back in that cubicle. Remember that cubicle you're in? The high-pressure cubicle? That car is yours. The pile of rubble is yours. If it burned to the ground, the ashes are yours. Get them off the lot. So it's being sold to you as is. Now, here's the problem. I tell people this, and they go, wait a second. You're telling me I've got no ability to go back after the dealership. And I go, in a typical transaction, no. That is, you bought a piece of junk used car, as is, you didn't have it inspected, and you drove it off the lot. And they go, but wait a second. I asked them if I could inspect it, and they said I didn't need to. And you believed them? Or I asked them if I could inspect it, they said no. And you still bought the car. Why do people forget that that car dealership is sitting there burning money? They're paying rent, taxes, utilities, salaries. It's sitting there burning money. And unless you walk onto the lot and buy a car and inject some money into this transaction, they're just sitting there burning money. So when you walk onto the lot of a used car dealership, you have 100% of the control of that situation. And if you go in with any other mindset, you are losing and you're going to get ripped off. Okay? You are in control of the situation. Like George Costanza says, be prepared to get up and walk. That's your option. You can do that. So I like the car. Can I have it inspected? No. Oh, that's too bad. I'll go find one I can have inspected. I like this car. Can I have it inspected? You don't need to have it inspected. Why? We inspected it. Oh, okay. Well, I'd like to have it inspected too. You can't inspect it. Why? You inspected it. Well, don't you trust us? I don't know you. I just met you 5 minutes ago. Why would I trust you? Do you trust me? People get intimidated by car dealerships. What I want you to do next time you go car shopping at a car dealership, as you're driving down the road towards the dealership, think to yourself, right now, if I could see the meter that showed how much money that car dealership is burning by the minute, just sitting there, rent, utilities, salaries, workman's comp, insurance, the money they're burning just sitting there, they need me and my money. They need it. And the second they treat you like they don't, get up and walk. Walk out. There's nothing more fun than walking out of a car dealership when a salesman comes running after you. Because they do. When you walk out, you're taking your wallet with you. So, can I have the car inspected? No. Okay, sorry. See ya. Leave. So, I have people tell me all kinds of things. They say, well, they wouldn't let me inspect it. They told me I didn't need to have it inspected. They told me it was a great car. They told me all kinds of stuff. And once in a while, I'll have someone go, but wait a second. The guy told me, the salesman did, buy this car. It's as is. But if anything happens to it, we'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. Now, if the salesman said that to me, does that get me around the as is? Oh, and I have to break the bad news to you by number two. I told you there's two things that are going to hurt you to use car dealer. The first is the as is. The second is the clause in the sales contract that most likely is there that says statements made by the salesperson are not enforceable against the car dealer unless reduced to writing and inserted here. And there'll be a blank spot on your contract where nothing's written in. I've told people before this, and I've done videos on this before, and I've said, if you are at a car dealer and you're thinking about buying a used car, the man's sitting right there talking to you and he's telling you stuff. And he says to you, if the car breaks down, we'll fix it. Let's suppose he actually said that. First day on the job, doesn't know he's not supposed to say that. But he says it. Car breaks down, bring it to us, we'll fix it. You pull the purchase agreement out and you say, okay, right here's a little section that says other. Can you please write in there, if the car breaks down, we'll fix it, period. And initial it. He's going to go, oh, I can't write that down. You go, why not? Is it not true? Now the guy's faced with a situation to either admit he lied to you or to explain to you why he can't write a truthful statement on the purchase agreement. If it's truthful, why couldn't he write it? So, just so you understand what I'm getting at here, let's suppose you're buying a 1991 Ford Explorer. 1991 Ford Explorer. And you ask the man, is this a 1991 Ford Explorer? He goes, yes, it is. Guarantee that? Yes. Promise? Yes. Would you write that in the purchase agreement that it is in fact a 1991 Ford Explorer? Well, yeah, of course. In fact, he'll write that right at the top. Car is green. Will you write that in the purchase agreement? Of course. You won't refuse to write that down? Why? Because it's true. We can all see it with our own eyes. It's green. Okay. You told me you'd fix it if it breaks down. Will you write that down? No. Why not? I'm not allowed to. He's not allowed to because it's not true. And he's also aware of the fact that the contract has that protection built into it. It's got a clause that says, nothing said by the salesperson is binding unless reduced to writing and put here in an empty box. That box is empty 98% of the time. The other 2%, it's not empty. It's got something in there, the equivalent of a due bill. D-U-E, next word B-I-L-L, lowercase b, not a proper name. Such that, I'll give you an example. I once bought a car and one of the shock absorbers was bad. I was convinced of it. Let's not go there as to why I thought that. And I said, I'll buy the car if you replace that shock. Guy said, not a problem. At the time we're signing documents, I go, hey, the shock absorber. The guy pulls out a due bill and it goes, we owe at the top. We, W-E, next word, O-W-E, we owe. And he wrote one shock absorber installed, no charge to customer. And the guy signed it and gave it to me. In writing, promised to replace that one shock absorber. And they did, by the way, later on replace the shock absorber. But the point is that if they make you a promise, it's only binding, they put it in writing. And their own documents say that. So when you go car shopping, be aware, number one, buying it from an individual, it's as is. Inspect it like there's no tomorrow, or price accordingly. And if you're buying it from a dealer, it's also as is. If it's a used car, read the documents carefully, but spot all the as is language and know what it means, and then understand that the statements made by the salesperson are not enforceable unless reduced to writing on the document itself, and they almost never are. So keep in mind that when the salesman's talking, you can tune it out because it's almost all meaningless stuff. So those are my most important thoughts on used cars. And what I'm trying to get across here is this is a warning. Because when people call me after the fact, they say, I got ripped off buying a used car. I have to say, I can't help you. I'm really sorry, but I can't help you. This is preventive medicine. And think of me as the emergency room doctor who sees gunshot wounds all day long. And I'm making a public service announcement saying, here's how to avoid getting shot. Because the doctor who does the gunshot wounds can't actually do that. You can't go out in the community and tell people not to get shot. But I can speak to an audience of people, many of whom will buy used cars one day. And if you keep these things in mind doing it, you'll protect yourself. The last thing you want to do in life is call an attorney and have the attorney say, I can't help you. Okay? Don't get me wrong. I like getting phone calls. I hate telling people I can't help them. So there you go. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Get used to disappointment.